Sergej Sumlenny is the co-director of the European Resilience Initiative Centre and joins us now live from Warsaw. Sergej, thank you very much indeed for your time. How much offence do you think the Polish Prime Minister took from those comments by Volodymyr Zelensky that some European countries were only pretending to support Ukraine? And are these two developments connected?
Yeah, thank you for having invited me tonight. And yes, of course, there are a lot of tensions between Warsaw and Kiev currently. And the sayings of the national leaders don't make the situation easier. They are loaded with a lot of emotions. So we know that Volodymyr Zelensky is is easy to be to be expressed emotionally. But in Poland, we are currently having an electoral campaign, and the sayings are also loaded with emotions and with polarizing. But also what we have already heard in your report before, some sayings of the Polish politicians have indeed been misinterpreted and or took out of context, like this weapons statement of the Polish Prime Minister when he said that Poland will focus on purchasing its own ammunition and weapons and modernizing its army. He didn't say that they will not support Ukraine with the army, but it was interpreted in context of the current tensions that Poland is threatening Ukraine with stopping the weapons. So both sides are polarized, both sides are very emotional, and it doesn't feel good. And the only party who is happy to hear all this is, of course, Vladimir Putin and Russia and Kremlin.
So something of a misunderstanding on the weapons. How about the grain exports from Ukraine or the imports into Poland? I mean, you mentioned that election, and clearly Polish leaders will need the support of their farmers. They'll need the support of the rural community. How much of this has been influenced by that upcoming election?
You're absolutely right. Polish farmers are very influential core electors of the ruling party, and they have a lot of influence on the local policy. And what we have now, while Ukraine cannot export its grain via normal sea routes, also to Africa, to Middle East, they have to use the land route, and this grain need to be somehow reloaded on Polish territory and territory of Slovakia, on territory of other countries which have direct border to Ukraine, including Romania and other nations. And that is the problem, because the capacities are limited. And the local farmers are afraid that this amount of grain will not only go to Africa where it belongs, but will be sold on the domestic market. And that will ruin the prices. And so that are a lot of fears, which is caused by a very deliberate Russian policy of destroying port facilities and endangering sea vessels. So the problem is not solved yet, and we all hope that the solution will be found with this licensing, but it is not that easy, and the situation is dangerous for both Ukrainian farmers who are suffering from lower prices and for the Polish farmers in this particular case.
Right, and Poland, I mean, it's really one of Ukraine's staunchest allies, and it's taken so many refugees across the border. There's clearly a huge connection between the countries. Is Poland at all concerned about how these two diplomatic rows, the grain and the weaponry, will look on the international stage at a very delicate time for Ukraine?
Absolutely, and this is not good for both countries, because both countries depend on each other. Ukraine, of course, depends much more now with the weapon support, but strategically, Poland also depends on Ukraine as a supporter. Don't forget, 1.5 years ago, the ruling party in Poland, PiS, was quite isolated in the EU, being criticized by Germany, by other neighbors. Then Poland demonstrated its clear vision of Russian threat and supported Ukraine decisively and helped Ukraine together with the UK and the US. So Poland demonstrated its solid political approach and gained a lot of authority in the EU. So Germans didn't dare to criticize Poland so much after that. So Poland also is dependent on Ukraine from this perspective. And Volodymyr Zelensky is also very popular among many voters in Poland. Don't forget it. I'm not sure if trying to polarize between Poland and Ukraine could bring really a lot of gains to the local Polish politicians. So it is much more complicated than it seems to be. And of course, in the perspective, like Ukrainian refugees who live in Poland are already a part of Polish society. The question will come, of course, will their residence permits will be prolonged? It will be another question because many Poles are afraid of their jobs, etc. But many have now relations with new employees or new friends. So it is a lot of discussions. But Poles and Ukrainians are in a very deep connection with each other. And out of their connection, a lot of opportunities grow, but also a lot of tension.
Sergej, we appreciate you giving us your analysis today. Sergej Sumlenny there joining us live from Warsaw.